Take control of your game right now from your smartphone, tablet, or desktop. Just go to www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. That's www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. Your game will thank you for it. Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf instruction podcast that helps you take control of your game. Now, here's your host, the founder of Par Breakers Golf Academy and certified Golf Channel Swing Fix instructor, Bernard Sheridan.
So, Ed, welcome to Breaking Par. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that in the winter it's not as busy as spring or summer, but I know that we were talking right before we came on the air, and you said that as soon as you're done this, you're going right back out and do some more lessons.
Well, we have had some cold weather, and thanks. It's great to be with you. I'm excited to be on the show. We've had some cold weather, and down here people get stir crazy very fast. And as soon as it looks like it's going to be a nice day, they rush to call me, which is great, and work on their game.
So with the students that you're working with, let's say right now, what are a lot of the things that you work with? Are you working with a lot of the same things with a lot of your students, or do you find that everything changes due to the individual, and what they need to work on at this moment?
I have, for example, one of the lessons this morning, he started with me 2 months ago, and he's been working real hard in between the lessons. And so he's moved progressively to the next level of where I want his swing to go and what his ball flight's doing. And for example, he had a strong grip and he was very rocked and he would still hit block slices. And as I've gotten him to swing better, I told him he probably would start fighting a hook. And now the hook is there and we're starting to soften that up where he can hit a nice draw. So it's a lot of fun for him because everything I said that was going to happen is happening. And he's getting the ball flight that he asked me to help him get. And those are lessons that we, all of us as teachers, enjoy because the person is committed, they're working hard, they're giving you the proper feedback. And so I don't always have people like that. A lot of people down here don't really want a lot of change. I always call it their car's a little bit off in the side of the ditch and they just want me to get them back up on the road and going again. And they're not going to work too hard at their game. They just want to be able to hit their shot again.
So do you find that with the bulk, because of where you're located, that the bulk of the students that you're dealing with are like that because they're playing almost year-round. They're working on their swing regularly, whereas opposed to where I am, which is up outside of Philadelphia, it seems like the beginning of the season, people are working more on trying to fix problems that they had the following season so that as they go into the new season, they can kind of build a ball flight and then get out there and get started.
Yeah, I agree. People play more year-round here. I do have a lot of seasonal members. We have close to 2,000 members at the community and the resort and the club, which is nice to have that built-in database for me. And now that I've been here 8 years, when I see them and they come back, I kind of know exactly the same habits that they've always shown me, and I just have to teach them how to stop making those default errors that they seem to always make and get them back into making the swings that hits the shots they want to hit. So you're right. It's just a matter of sort of doing maintenance. Not many people want me to roll out the blueprints and teach them how to do a really new swing. They just want to find out how to do theirs better.
Sure. So when you do that, is there any is most of your lessons right out on the range, or are you using because you're where you're located, or do you do anything inside? And if you're either or, depending upon where you are you using any kind of technology on a regular basis, like launch monitors or pressure mats or anything like that?
The technology I use is the Tommy for the putting, which measures. I rarely do a putting lesson without measuring the stroke first to see what the tendencies are. It's a wonderful tool. very much like Mike Shannon. Shannon up at Sea Island measures everyone indoors. I measure people indoors as well, but it's a different kind of building. And we have a flight scope, and then I also use a JC video system. I don't know about you, but I've used video a lot less in the last several years because while it helps it diagnose the swing, I rarely show people their own video. They're too critical of how they look. Usually they talk about their stomach or their gut or that they need to lose weight instead of noticing what you're trying to show them about their swing. And what's interesting is I partnered up with this company called Secrets of Champions, and I'll be sharing a little bit of that information with you today. The best golfers are more kinesthetic. They're much more in touch with their feel. They're very much, they don't go to their left brain very much and become super analytical. And video causes the left brain to become analytical, and it surely helps them understand their errors, but it doesn't help them feel anything. And so I don't use video very often during the course of a lesson. I will use it sometimes as a way to give someone some really positive feedback, to show them, here's where you were a month ago, look how much better you've improved this. Because sometimes I can see that their attitude's getting bad, and I want to give them a big burst and pump them up a little bit.
Sure. So it's basically you're using video as a as positive reinforcement as opposed to negative reinforcement.
Big time. I don't want them to look at their old mistakes and become critical of that.
Sure. So so then a lot of times then are you using flight scope and then just gathering information during your lessons? And when you do that, are you translating that information to the student, or is it basically for your personal consumption to get them to more do feel type things?
I use flight scope for the majority of the time to help answer questions about their driver, because they have a lot of misconceptions about which driver is best for them and whether or not it hits the best shots and that kind of thing. So I use the data and the information from flight scope because it's pretty hard to dispute about which driver they should use and how the swing they're using is going to affect that shot. I don't use it to teach or to diagnose problems.
So what you're doing most of the time is when you're out on the lesson tee is using actual ball flight and what they're doing, and what you see by eye, or yes. Okay.
Yes.
And do you find that for you, because you've been doing this for quite a while, so matter of fact,
30 years.
30 years?
Yes.
So in that situation, a lot of these students that you're seeing are not necessarily new students, correct?
Oh no, I don't get too many new students.
So they're students that you're used to seeing on a regular basis, that when things are going a little awry, they'll stop by, and then you'll say, okay, let's look at this, let's see what you're doing, hit a few balls for me. And then after they do that, then you'll make suggestions. Now, when you make those suggestions, are you when they're all said and done, let's say, are they working on specific drills that you give them? Or are they working on a feeling? Or are they what are the things that you usually give your students to work on?
That's a great question. I sort of perform a mini profile on each person's personality. And based on what they're like is sort of the prescription they're going to leave with. One of the customers this morning is an accountant, and he's super analytical, and he likes to dwell on data. And I have to push him away from that and really make him more focused on feel. And I give him triggers to think about on the golf course that will trigger the feel, because he gets so into the sort of swing by the numbers type thinking that he can't seem to switch on to the creative juices, the playing the shot, the feel of everything. And so I really push him to think about certain cues and triggers to lock that in. And then when he does it, he plays a lot better.
Well, I know that for me and the students that I deal with, I try to, I do use data, but I don't really divulge a lot of that data to them. I try to take that data and turn it into a feeling and then have them create that feeling to change the data. So it's not much different than what you're doing. It's very similar to that. The only difference is that at the end I might say to them, here's the data that it was at the start. Here's the data that it is now, that you feel a little bit differently. Can you feel that? Or I might use it so they can view it and feel it in real time. That's what I'll do with the 3D thing, the Swing Guru. I'll have them like kind of do it in real time so they can see what they're doing, but they're not really looking at data. They're more looking at what their body, because they really aren't seeing, they're looking at a face on, and it's actually a 3D model of their body.
I love that, because then they're not critical of how they look. They just see
right.
that computer-generated model swinging like them. I love that.
Right. So that really seems to well, the one that I use, they actually do kind of see their actual. It is an actual model of them, but it's because it's the way it's made. You don't feel as critical about it. So in other words, you can still see your gut if you got one, but but you're not seeing some great looking athletic form up there that's translated into you. You actually are seeing you, but it's not as I think there's other things that I'm having them look at, not really looking at that, and I can make it so that they don't even see that. So that they just see, let's say, weight, center of mass or something of that nature. And I can say, try to make that ball in between your feet do this. What do you need to feel to make that ball do that? Don't even worry about what it looks like. Just worry about how you feel and get that center and get that ball that represents your center of mass to make this motion. And I find that really helps them tone in on feel to create a path for the club or whatever I'm trying to get them to do. So it works pretty good. So you mentioned some new things that you're involved in. What are they right now?
Well, I'm excited to announce we're going to be part of that Golf Channel Academy.
Oh, wonderful.
Resort.
Nice.
Very good, and it's very exciting. It's a huge thing to be able to have that affiliation and that alliance. So that's big. And then this other company is Secrets of Champions. And there's this amazing man, George Carlo. And quick little background about him. He's been studying peak performance in sports forever. I'm not sure how many years, but I'm sure it's almost as long as I've been teaching. And he went over to Russia, and he was invited to tour the Russian Olympic Training Center. And as he did this, they went by a room, and he looked in the room, and there were stacks and stacks of papers. He said, "What's that?" And they said, "It's data." And he said, "Well, what does it say?" And they said, "We don't know yet." And so he talked them into sending all the data, all the papers to Columbia University where he was, and he and his staff went over it with a fine-tooth comb, and they got to find out all this incredible things that the Russians have been testing their athletes. And, they have a questionnaire for their athletes that's 1,500 questions long.
Wow.
And George has pared it down to 32 key questions so that he can figure out how you perform, what part of the brain is you're dominant, are you an intense type person, or are you relaxed? All this incredible information, which then helps the coach, me, and he's also profiled me, to know how to address and coach and teach this person. And it's fascinating stuff. I love it this age we're in with all the technology, but there's information out there about what makes us tick, how we're wired, and how we learn and how we perceive things that I think all of us need to. And you're familiar with Mike Hebron. He's sort of switched gears into how the brain works and how people learn. And that is a big deal for those of us that teach this game, because golf is so hard.
Oh, absolutely, and the way that the brain functions in order to create motion and and also how people perceive that, and whether they're using their conscious mind or their subconscious mind, or letting the basal ganglia actually do the work as opposed to letting the prefrontal cortex do the work.
Yeah.
Things of that nature are it's tough to be able to get a student to do that, or to think a static thought, or things like that. So this new thing that you're getting involved in, is that more in that side of the game, inside of the mental game?
Well, exactly. As teachers, it can get a little monotonous at times, analyzing a slice and going, how to fix it, and always going through, and it becomes sort of mundane. But when George came along and started explaining how people feel, how people remember, how people process all this information, it recharged my batteries, because I felt armed with new information to get people to have it stick. Because it seems like way too many people will work with you a couple lessons, and then they show up and they still have the same darn old move. The whole getting people to change is a tricky thing.
Oh, sure. It's like I say to my students, it's like a hard reset. If they have things that are built into their brain, it's almost like if you are surfing on the web and you open up your browser, it automatically opens up, let's say, to Google. So that's like a hard reset. And then you have to type in where you want it to go. And you type in, let's say, Facebook. So then you click go, and it goes to Facebook. So I know that for the students that I teach, I try to explain to them that when we're trying to learn something new, if they don't continually do the drills or do the things that we need them to do, or have a certain static focus or whatever that may be, their brain's going to default to the hard reset. Mm-hmm. Just like their browser does. When they open the browser, it's always going to go to the same place, and that's just because that information has been inside the brain for so long that they're hardwired that way. So a lot of what this study, or I guess these things that you're doing that are in this new realm, probably are trying to rewire those things, correct?
It is, and it sort of puts you on the fast track, because, for example, we've all grown up with Nicholas talking about visualization and saying he went to the movies before he hit a shot. Well, George will tell you a post-impact visualization is going to help you perform 90% better. If you visualize how you're going to swing the club when you're out on the golf course, you're not going to perform well. But if you visualize like the cool way that they trace the shots on the tracer or the TrackMan or whatever they're using on tour, if you see that in your mind and you go up to the shot and you're visualizing that, he says you're going to perform better. So that's what's fun about this kind of information and data, is it specifically explains this is going to perform better than this. And that's the kind of information that's fun as a coach and a teacher to pass on to golfers, because they're all searching for, well, how am I going to do it more often, or how am I going to play better? For example, another one is really interesting. Most of us, and he told me, according to my profile, I create, he calls it sympathetic stress, by thinking of my past performances. So if I played last week and let's say I shot 73, and I get on the tee today, and if I was going to play and I start thinking about beating that round, I'm creating sympathetic stress. According to my profile, I'm better off thinking of the challenge of, well, let's see how the course is set up today, and I take on the challenge of the way the golf course is instead of my past score. Then he says my brain will be active and excited about that instead of stressing about beating my last performance. Well, this is great information, because a lot of my students are like that. They're thinking about their last score, their last performance, and creating stress to compete against that. It's great stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know that. I feel the same way. I think a lot of us do the same thing. We always want to do better, so then we kind of think about what we did before and how we can do it better, or try to beat it. But if I've found that when my best rounds are is when I'm not thinking about any of that kind of stuff. I'm just thinking about what I need to do to execute what I'm doing right now, and to play with the shot that I have today. And I remember that Jack has said that too. He's like, it's not like he always just hit a high cut. Some days he just wasn't hitting a high cut.
Yeah.
So he played what he was playing that day. Those are the players who can just play more freely, and usually I think when you play more freely, it gives you that opportunity to tap into what the power of the brain can do to self-correct at high speed. Whereas if you're trying to think of these things and trying to self-correct it, then it actually slows down the brain, and doesn't allow it to take care of those fast twitch muscles, those things that happen at impact.
Right. Yeah. Some people are wired in a way that they have to play the golf course from the green back to the tee. That's me. So if I think of where the pin placement is first, and then I form my strategy of how I want to play the hole from that point, it's better for me. It helps me stay into it. It helps me be creative. There's other people, like another instructor that's with our group. He's wired where he has to think of from the tee to the green. And it's interesting. So it's cool to be able to profile people and tell them this is the best way for you to do it. This is the best way for you to do it. And for example, we were just talking, think of what Lydia Ko did. She said she had a terrible night's sleep. She warmed up bad. She bogeyed the first hole and then shot 61. It's the best rounds sort of come to us. We certainly can't force it. And it's hard to do that, but if you just sort of relax and just enjoy the process, it works a lot better in this game.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with, too, is to bury in what just happened. If you start out with a bogey, if you're a tour professional, you feel like you're starting out in the hole. But if you can bury that and just move on, it's done. There's nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep going and see the best that we can do with what we have today. Then that's really the key, as opposed to a lot of amateur players. They feel like they're trying, like, oh my gosh, now I have to make a birdie. Now I'm in the hole and I got to make a birdie just to get back to even and make up for it. So their brain is more stressing out on that than it is on just let it go and forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you're teaching that type of thing to different students, have you started to implement that in the lessons that you're teaching?
I am. I'm teaching them triggers. There's things to put you more in the correct, we call it more into the right brain. People who play instruments. I have one kid this morning. I told he's home for spring break. I know he plays guitar, so I told him last night. I said, I want you playing guitar this morning when you wake up. And when he's playing guitar, he's not in the left brain technical side. He's in the more. And you wouldn't believe the difference in the way he warmed up this morning. It was just, he was flowing. He was more creative. You could just see the way he was trying to play golf shots. He gets so left brain sometimes. It's just he can't seem to move. The wrong muscles take over. He's not fast. He's not smooth. He's not fluid. He's tight. And so just by telling him to play the guitar is a good one. Also, for most people, doing swings with their eyes closed. Just having them warm up with doing that. It's an incredible way to create some awareness and some mind-body connection that you want. And this is big stuff, because the game has that thing about it that makes people think the more I do X, Y, and Z, or the more correct or robotic I am, I should hit the ball straight. It has this, it can draw you into, I call the dark side. And people don't realize you have to do all those drills, and then you have to sort of be free and let it go. Just like, did you go down that flight of stairs and think about how every foot hit the ground, or did you just do it? Because if you thought about how your feet were moving, you would have fell on your face.
Oh, absolutely. I know that I use that, and I've always used that with new students, where I say to them, if I were to ask you to walk over to a point, touch it, and come back, And sometimes I do that. I'll say, well, what were you thinking about? And they go, well, I was thinking about getting there and getting back. I said, well, were you thinking about the actual physical motion that you were doing, like each step? No, not at all. I said, well, then why would you think about that in your golf swing when you're going to swing and you're thinking about, okay, I need to get it parallel to the ground and parallel to the target line by the time I get to this point. And then I need to start to hinge my hands, and then when I get to the top, I need to do this, and then I need to start down with my left hip, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. I mean, none of that stuff's going to work. I mean, just let it go. Don't even worry about it. And then when you kind of put it that way to them with the walking to touching something or something like that, then they totally understand it.
Yeah.
Or if I say, walk heel toe, toe, heel toe, heel. And think about that while you do it. They're stumbling over their own feet, and I say, you've been walking, and this is guys who are like, in their 40s and 50s, and I'll say, you've been walking for like, 40 some years, and you can't walk and think about it.
Yeah.
And they go,
right.
No, not really. And I say, well, then what makes you think you can swing your golf club and think about it? You can't do that either, and you haven't been doing that half as long.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge thing.
It's big.
Yeah. So do you find that you use that a lot more when you're doing playing lessons too? Or is it most of it on the lesson tee?
Yeah, there's a significant amount of people that want playing lessons, but the reality is they're not ready for it. Because first of all, they really can't hit 6 out of 10 shots on the range that look similar.
Right.
So why does it matter? They calculate how far they are. They want to know the distance. They want to know the pin placement. They want to know the wind. Yet on the range, I've never seen them hit anything consistent. Consistent to me is someone who can hit 6 or 7 out of 10 reasonably good-looking shots and know how far they go.
Right.
And it's hard for me to be blunt, but at this point in my career, I tell people, you're not ready for a playing lesson. Now, if they are, yes, I'm out there trying to teach them how to play golf instead of play golf swing.
Right.
Because they usually don't perform well because they think that it's all about making the swing. It's not. It's like you got to just play the game.
Yeah.
You got to hit shots.
Yeah, and you got to be able to manufacture shots, and if you make a bad shot, you got to be able to come back from that shot. And you have to make smart choices as to how you're going to recover. I know that when I take players out for a playing lesson, a lot of them will try to pull a hero shot that they might make 1 out of 20 times. If you ask them how many times do you think they'll make it, they'll go, like I say, if you had 10 balls right here and you were going to hit it from the exact same spot every single time, how many of those shots would you pull off? And they go, 6 or 7. And I go, really? Okay, let's try that. And the first 3 shots they don't pull off at all. And then I give them a different, say, hit it out in the fairway here, and then how many times can you do that? And right away they drop it. Immediately they hit it to that point. And I say, which place would you rather be right now? In those woods over there, or on the fairway and still have another shot that's 130 yards into the green? As opposed to trying to hit a 160-yard shot over trees around a corner. So that's kind of the things that, even though a lot of the students that I have too are also not consistent enough to play on the golf course, I might take that approach to them and just make them say, look, I know you're not going to hit every shot great, but let's try to minimize the damage here and make a little bit more conscious, intelligent decisions as to what kind of shots you're going to hit. And some of them are kind of like not sure. They only think in their head there's only one shot that they can hit. Whereas a professional like yourself or myself or a better player would maybe think of 4 different shots that they could hit in that situation, and which one is going to be best for the way they feel right now. And that they think that they could pull off at this moment, because some days you don't feel like you could do that shot, and other days you feel like you can hit any shot and you're going to try it?
I use examples. People remember stuff. It's interesting. They remember things when you attach a story to it. So when I played college golf, one of the par threes at the conference championship was 240 yards. And our coach said, if you guys go for the green, you're off the team. So we all laid up with 4 irons just short of the green. And what was amazing is we got up and down almost every time because all the trouble was parallel to the green or over it. And if you stood there with a 3-wood and went for it, you're just bringing giant numbers into play. There was this huge landing area short of the green. So we played that hole as a team, something like 1 over par for the tournament. And we killed everybody. We made up so many shots on that. And so I'll tell people about that. Tell me about a hole on the course that you hate. And then we'll go out there and we'll play it. And I'll explain, well, your philosophy of how to play it is all wrong. And so I'll just use stories like that to embed the whole idea about how to play the game. And it really works good. Instead of just saying, well, you should stand on this side of the tee box and you should do this, blah, blah, blah. If you sort of tell them about, very much like my college experience, they get it. They seem to understand it and they remember it. And those are cool ways to go out on the course and make it interesting. We don't play for a score. I call it, we play the Amelia Island Scramble, and that means we hit shots and I take them to situations and teach them how to make the right decisions and to play the right shots. So we don't really put the pressure on us to try to shoot a score.
Yeah, and I like that too, especially in a playing lesson, that score really doesn't matter. And I think that if players forget about score more, to get back to earlier as to what we talked about in the podcast, about you saying that if I shot a 73, I'm thinking about beating that. When you don't think about score, you play better. And I think that most of us are like that. I think that most of us, if we don't think about score, we will play better because we're playing a lot more free and we're being more in our natural state that golf is supposed to be played.
I agree. And a funny story, at one time I was acting very irritated and frustrated about how I was playing. And I forgot who it was, but he said, how many holes do you think you'll play the rest of your life? I said, oh, geez, 30 or 40,000. He said, is it conceivable that you might have a stretch of 18 bad ones in that? Yeah. And he said, is it conceivable that you might have a stretch of 18 great ones in that stretch? I said, yeah. He goes, well, then stop stressing out about it. You got a ton of holes to play. Just hit it and go find it and hit it again until someone says great round.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. I really like that, and that's we're kind of running out of time, so that's an excellent way to end this, because that is a great pearl of wisdom to drop on our listeners here at Par Nation. That it's a game. You're going to be playing tons of holes down the road, so yes, just enjoy it and don't stress out so much about it. It's not supposed to be. I mean, games aren't supposed to be stressed. They're supposed to be relieving stress and enjoying it. So it's that's great wisdom, and I totally agree with the stories. The more that you can tell stories, the more that people can relate, because we all have had some type of a story that has happened to us that is similar to other individuals. And that's really where, as people or golfers, we all relate to each other because we've all been in similar situations and have taken either advantage of those situations or have stressed out over in those situations and did not do as well. So for players who, or for our listeners who might be heading down your way, or for people in your area who would like to, maybe, I don't know how much room you have to add any new students.
Always room.
Well, there you go. So that's good, and I'm glad to hear that, because I'm sure that once some of our listeners hear some of the wisdom that you've given us today, that they would be very interested in having that opportunity to be with you in person and to talk to you. So how can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to do that, and what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, thank you. It's been great to be with you. I'm at, you can follow me on Twitter at Bowe Golf. Also, on Facebook at Ed Bowe. I'm at the Omni Amelia Island Plantation Resort here on Amelia Island, Florida. We're about as far north as you can get on the East Coast before you get into into Georgia. And my number is 904-206-0705. And that's the best way to get a hold of me. Or you can call the resort at 904-261-6161 and ask for Ed at the Golf Academy, soon to be the Golf Channel Academy. So great to be with you.
It's great to have you, and congratulations on your new association with the Golf Channel. And I'm sure that they'll have you on. I know that they're going to be probably more than likely doing that. I have more than a couple buddies who have gotten involved in this, and that's really exciting. So congratulations on that. And thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And as we say here on Breaking Par, try to keep it in the short grass.
Take control of your game right now from your smartphone, tablet, or desktop. Just go to www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. That's www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. Your game will thank you for it.